Hey guys, I'm Matt and this is Lizzie, and we're on the Nebula Music Podcast.
All right, what is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here once again, and welcome to the Nebula Music Podcast. As you guys already know, but for those of you who are brand new, this is a show where we talk to some of today's most inspiring and influential musicians. Whether they're notable or up and coming, we try our best to have people on the show who are doing really cool things and explore their mindset to figure out what drives their passion. Today is definitely no exception to that rule because I have a young duo who's doing some pretty cool stuff. They're making really cool music. They reached out to me for an interview, and I definitely wanted to squeeze them into the schedule because I think they're worth talking to, and I cannot wait to explore their mindset. Today, I am joined by Matt and Lizzie, who are members of the band Fairview. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Really good. Thank you.
No, thank you guys for taking time out of your day to be on the show. Let me ask you guys, where am I calling you from?
We are just outside of Chicago. So it's very cold. It's like 0 degrees outside.
Yeah, there's about 8 inches of snow on the ground. We call it Siberia this time of year because it's so cold.
Siberia, man. You know, it's been a long time since I've been to Chicago, but I do remember it being so cold, blistering cold. Like, I would say, you know, in my experiences, I think the coldest places I've been to in the United States, and obviously there might be colder places, but I would definitely say that Chicago is tied up there with New York because New York was cold as hell. But Chicago, I was just surprised at how freezing it gets. Maybe it's because you guys are right by a lake or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It gets bad, and the wind hits you so hard. It's like we'll look at our phones at the weather app, and it'll say it's 5 degrees out, but it feels like -16. It has like the real feel, and it'll say like -10, -16, just because of the wind. It's crazy.
Yeah, I imagine so. You know, when I went there the very first time years ago, I remember that it was the scariest landing I had ever done at an airport. And I remember reading how, you know, the Windy City, blah, 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 all the little things that people read about Chicago. But I remember for 20 minutes, the airplane was nonstop shaking. And I thought it was like a random occurrence, but we were sitting next to some people who were from Chicago, and they were telling us, oh, this is pretty normal, you know, as normal as things can be in terms of flying to Chicago during the winter. And so ever since then, I've never gone back during the winter because of that.
Not a bad call.
Yeah, we don't blame you.
Yeah,
it's not fun landing at O'Hare.
It is not. It was definitely scary, but I feel like it made me a much better person. But Matt and Lizzie, I want to take some time just to explore a little bit of how you guys got started in music. You guys are fairly young. You're a duo who makes really cool music, and I must say your voices together sound absolutely incredible. So I want to hear a little bit about the story on how you two met, how you guys started with music, and we'll go from there.
Sure.
Well,
so
thank you. There's a lot of compliments in there.
I know. We actually met in grade school, believe it or not. We met as kids. Matt was a year older than me, and kind of stayed friends through high school. And in high school, just started playing covers of songs in like friends' basements. And then we started exploring like writing songs together and started dating in high school as well. And ever since then, like kind of the whole time we've been dating, we've had this band that, and I think the cool thing is that we kind of started dating and the band started at like the same time. And ever since then, we've just been writing songs together, singing them from a young age. We like realized that we love singing harmonies together. So thank you for that compliment. And yeah, it's gone from high school playing in basements to putting out singles and music videos. And it's been quite the journey.
Yeah. And how old are you guys right now?
We're both 26.
Oh, wow. You guys look incredibly young. You don't look 26 whatsoever.
We get that.
Yeah, we get that a lot. We went to Vegas a few years back. So we were probably like 24 at the time or whatever. And every casino that we would go in, because we were acting like tourists going through casinos and stuff, people would keep coming up to Lizzie, who worked there, and asking her to see her ID.
I must have gotten carded like 20 times.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh
we
my
get
God.
carded a lot.
Wow. Wait, so you were working in Las Vegas? Did you guys have like a residency, or were you guys doing something else?
No, we were driving through Vegas. We had stuff going on in Phoenix and then going out to LA, I think, to film a video. And so we were driving through Vegas on the way, and we stopped in for like a night, and we're just, doing all the touristy stuff and going through the casinos and stuff.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting about Las Vegas, I find that it's one of those places. This is completely random. This is just kind of me ranting, but in all my experiences, I feel like Vegas is one of those where, especially as a musician, you can either have a great time, it can be really fun, you play some cool shows, or it can be very, very miserable. And I remember there was one time where I was there by myself. I wasn't there for music. I was there for other things that I was involved in. And I remember trying to hang out in Vegas, and hanging out by yourself in Vegas is so hard to do. Like, even for someone like me who was very outgoing and I can talk to almost anybody, hanging out at least on the Strip is incredibly difficult when you're by yourself. And I don't know why. That just reminds me of your story reminded me of that. But I don't know. I don't know if you guys have ever had an experience like that where everybody is in groups, like everyone's kind of together and then you're just by yourself, and then you have to try and either just be okay with being by yourself or try to, talk to somebody. And only really the weirdos are the ones who talk to you. But I don't know. just random little tidbit. So, okay. So you guys met in high school and you guys have been playing you met in grade school and you started making music, and then now you're here currently now. I guess what I'm wondering is to kind of give the listeners a little bit of a backstory of how we met. You guys reached out to me on Instagram, and I am horrible at responding to DMs, so I do apologize about that. But we did manage to get it. At this point, I feel like almost everybody is really horrible at replying to DMs. But I remember, getting in touch with you guys, and I'm not sure if he's your manager, he's the head of your label, but we got in touch with Tom, and he really wanted me to interview you. So one of the things that I was genuinely curious about was how, you guys are this duo, you guys are also a couple, and at least I think you guys are still a couple, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And that's actually one of the things I've always been curious in exploring, because I don't get a lot of couples on the show. Usually I get bandmates, people who, obviously are in relationships, but I've never had like an actual couple on the show. So I always wanted to explore that a little bit, if you guys don't mind me sort of picking your brain when it comes to that sort of dynamic. I imagine the questions that you imagine I might ask would be a little cliche, but I'm generally curious to hear how it works between you two, because in my experience, many musical relationships either work very perfectly in terms of, people just get each other and they're polar opposites where they can contribute different things, or sometimes it can be very, very difficult depending on the musical taste and whatnot. So I guess I'm just curious, on a generic level, how does your music relationship work, and how does that balance by the fact that you guys are together romantically?
That's a great question. I think in some things it works really well. And like our musical taste is very similar. We both kind of like the same songwriters. We both have very vast tastes in genre and artists. We'll both be in love with like a Taylor Swift album, but also like a Beatles album, or stuff like that. So musical taste wise, we line up pretty well. I would say in songwriting, we've developed a really good chemistry with writing songs, but I don't think it was always so easy, especially because we would write songs about each other, and we'd write like a verse and a chorus, and then we'd show one another. And if the other person didn't really like it, it's like, well, I wrote this about you, so what the heck, So there's like a learning curve in like how to make it work, but
I think that kind of has helped us grow as songwriters too, because sometimes like when you're writing by yourself, which we've both done, like you could think an idea is totally awesome, like the best thing you've ever written, and then you show it to someone and they're like, I mean, it's okay, but can we try changing these parts? And like, I think that that kind of buffer of having each other as the person doing that rather than a label or a producer has helped us like go back and edit our work. And sometimes it's not like what you want to hear, but having that person who is your significant other and the person who like you're in business with, like we've had a great experience with that, just being able to grow as people in a relationship and as songwriters and musicians. So it's been really cool. And then like going on tour is obviously really fun because you're just traveling with, your partner, which is kind of the dream. So there's definitely learning curves, like Matt said, but overall it's honestly been so much fun. And like, we are so blessed to do it together, I think.
Yeah. And you guys speak as if you guys have been doing it for a long time, like you guys have said. I'm wondering at the beginning when you first started, was it like that naturally? And obviously I'm asking that and I'm assuming that I think I know what the answer is, but I'm asking it with an open mind because there are rarities out there where I've witnessed them, where partnerships, whether romantically or not, where they just work, just naturally out of nowhere, people meet and the way they work together just instantly is perfect. But in other instances, healthy partnerships or relationships, are things that you have to work at and they don't always start great, but at some point you figure out some sort of balance. For you two, I'm wondering, was that the case in terms of how you work together? Was it did you guys realize right away, oh yeah, we work incredibly well together? Or was it something that you had to work at and it took some time to get to this point or somewhere in between? I don't know.
I think that, we're better now than we were then. Obviously, we've grown and stuff. And I think that starting out, we were more separate. We would write songs, we would have dreams. And then the more we've been together, those dreams and, the songs we write have aligned a little bit more. Everybody would compare us to Fleetwood Mac when we first started our band because now it's just us, but before there were a bunch of other members and there were a few couples involved. People would compare us to Fleetwood Mac. We get a lot of like Sonny and Cher now, like, some of the older fans that we have will compare us to them. And those are groups that didn't make it as couples. So to your point, it's not easy to navigate those waters and come out the other side and still be together, so right. There's definitely work that's involved and, neither of us are perfect, but it's definitely worth the work.
And I think that fortunately, like both of our skill sets are different in the sense, like when it comes to things other than writing the songs, like I have a very like graphic design eye and like I love doing that kind of stuff. And Matt's really good with like algorithm and doing that other side of things. So it's like we kind of meet in the middle when it comes to songwriting and performing. And then like the other tasks that go along with being a musician, like we very much separate and divide and conquer, which I think it allows us to have each our own specific skill sets, but then also working for the greater good, which is Fairview and like building that brand. So yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of cool that you both are creative, but one of you guys, Matt really thrives in the analytical side and you really thrive in the visual graphic design side. That's kind of cool because I do a little bit of both, which we can get into a little bit later. But backtracking just a tiny bit, I do want to get your thoughts on this. You are absolutely right that in some of the examples of relationships that have created music in the past, many of them don't work out well, right? And I'm wondering for you guys, because you guys seem to have figured it out. Have you guys ever thought about why those relationships didn't work out? And I'm not sure if I should even be asking this. I'm just wondering, and I'm curious about it because it's one of those things in the industry where the relationships that create music, in my experience and in the music history, tend to create legendary music. Like you guys are, I feel like you guys are in your infancy, but you guys are creating awesome music that will definitely be amazing in the long run. And I am wondering, what is it about that partnership that produces such great music, but then a lot of those partnerships have ended? And again, this is not me speculating over anything. I'm just wondering what it is about that partnership that creates amazing, talented music. And there might not be an answer, by the way. I'm just kind of just spitballing here. It's just interesting.
No, sure. That's a great question, honestly. I think it's kind of a little bit of what Lizzie said earlier is like the collaboration. A lot of times when there's two people, whether it's, two people in love or it's somebody like Paul McCartney and John Lennon, I think that if you have two talented songwriters rather than one, you end up with something really cool. And then to get different perspectives, like Lizzie and I have very different perspectives, just, being a guy and a girl and, feeling different things. I think we can put a lot into it she writes lines that I would never think of. And, I probably write some things that she wouldn't necessarily think of. So I think that definitely helps. And in regards to like why these people don't make it, it's usually after they're enormously successful and huge is when it seems like these people are breaking up. So we'll have to tell you about that when we get there.
It's a tough topic to bring up because I know it can be sensitive sometimes, and I appreciate you being open for me to ask those questions because I never like to push buttons in that sense. That's not my personality to try and make people feel uncomfortable at all. But to me, it's more so the learning side of things and just being genuinely curious about how things work, because at the end of the day, creativity and legendary work, while the work lasts, sometimes it can take toll on people. And I'm not tolls on people. And I'm not even just talking about relationships. I think it's a common understanding that a lot of artists that we look up to suffered in their life, and that's not even just talking about in their personal life. It's more so there is this stigma that artists, there are few who become very fulfilled and happy at the end of their lives. You know what I mean? And then in general, there is this romanticizing of the struggling, emotionally struggling artist or group of artists or whatever, I don't get that from you two. I do feel like, first of all, like we talked about earlier, you don't look your age. You look incredibly young, which is good for you guys. I know you guys must be washing your face and using lotion every day because I don't know how you're doing it. But also
all organic.
You know what? There is probably something to that. But I do feel like you're approaching your relationship and music from a much more mature mindset than I did at that age. And I'm not that much older than you two. I'm 30 years old right now. But I remember being that age, and I remember being around other musicians of the same age, and we didn't approach music that way. And obviously I'm biased towards my experiences, but it is interesting that you two together seem like a unit, and you're very much down to earth and realistic over what you're doing. And it also seems like you're willing to compromise a lot. And I think that's probably part of the key of why you're succeeding so well. But I don't know. I'm wondering what your thoughts are. Why is it that you two are where you're currently at in terms of your mindset and your relationship and music? And how is that the case? Is there anything specific that you guys focused on early on that allowed you to get to this point? Or was it just random? Or is it just your individual personalities that are just realistic people? I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I feel like being a couple kind of sets us apart from just like another band or a solo musician, in the sense that like I think every time we make a decision for the band, it's like for our futures. And so we don't just want like this, random overnight success if it doesn't fit like the lifestyle that we want in the end. And I feel like a lot of times when bands or artists like make it at a really young age, sometimes they haven't put the work into it. And sometimes people are still amazing and grateful and everything. But I think that we've worked a lot the past couple years, like to try to shape the future we want as both a couple and a band. And for us, that those two very much tie together as like our future. And so I think that by kind of shaping our ideas around what we both want and the success we both want to have and like the road to getting there has helped us grow in that sense and create those decisions that are building like step by step rather than just like trying to take these crazy chances just for ourselves or our individual gain.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Lizzie, since you were just talking last, in terms of your personality, how would you describe you? Obviously I my aim is to kind of try and compare you two and how your personalities match so well together. I think that's interesting. This quickly became like a matchmaking podcast. It's so fucking weird, but I know. Well, you know what? I think it's important. Part of the goal here is to try and be as real as possible and really, I'm sure there's tons of couples out there who are doing the same and probably want to know your secret. So I'm wondering, how would you describe your personality on a generic level? Like, what are your key features that stand out when someone meets you and they see Lizzie? What would you describe yourself as?
I mean, I would say that I'm a very optimistic person. I would say I'm an introvert, where Matt's more extroverted than I am. And I feel like I just like to look kind of far out rather than just like take day by day. I like to like look at big picture things and focus on those big moves. And I think that in that sense, like in the extrovert sense, like Matt is very opposite to my characteristics, which is why I think that like in a business setting, as well as being a couple, like we work well together, because there are those opposites that he very much looks at like day-to-day tasks that are going to move the needle. And I look more at the big picture of things and where those day-to-day tasks can lead us.
Interesting. And Matt, would you agree that that's how the way Lizzie described you? Are you along those lines?
I think 100%. Yeah, I think she's totally right about that. And I think one thing Lizzie left out, because she's kind of humble, is that she's super hardworking. And she's, every day we're both just working towards this goal and willing to do what it takes to get there. And I think that we've also found, as we've gotten deeper into our relationship, like we said, we started dating in high school and it's been a few years now, but we're just starting to find out that like we love so many of the same things, whether it be like places to go on vacation or what foods we like, what foods we don't like, movies
yeah.
that we love. Yeah. So we got lucky. We started dating in high school, and I honestly had a crush on Lizzie since I was in like 7th grade or 6th grade or something. I finally, started a band and was able to trick her into dating me and joining my band. But we're lucky because we're finding out that so many of the things that we love, the other person loves, and so many of the dreams that we have, we share. So it's been really nice in that sense.
Yeah. Would you say, or would it be safe in me as assuming that in order to have not just a successful relationship, but a successful music relationship, is it pivotal to have the same dream, so to speak? And that's a generic question too, because I've talked to others who it's not the case, but yet they have really good partnerships. But for you two, I'm wondering, as you were describing your personalities and describing how you guys like a lot of the same things and, your goals are shared and that sort of thing, I imagine that wasn't apparent from the very beginning. You guys got together because you liked each other. Then at some point you probably realized, oh, hey, we want to do the same thing. But I'm wondering, in your experience, now that you've been at it for a long time, is that part of the key, or is that the main reason why this works? And maybe that's why others haven't worked out. I don't know. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think that's been kind of the key to it so far. And like Lizzie said, she's kind of big picture, and I'm like, a little more day to day. So we both have the same dream of being touring artists and having our music streamed by millions of people, and create the songs that connect with people and help people. That's like the shared goal. But I think that we shape each other's dreams a little bit by like, I'd love to like tour the country and play House of Blues in every city and sell those out. And Lizzie will be like, well, why don't we play like stadiums and sell those out and shoot for that? So we kind of encourage each other. Or I'll be like, I really think that we just hit 1 million streams on Spotify, and that was like a goal that I was chasing for a while. And so now it's like, okay, well, let's try to get to 10 million this year, and
big picture. That's me.
Just keep pushing each other to do things and to take it a step further.
Yeah, I love that. I love that one of you that Lizzie is the big picture person, and Matt is, you're more, I guess not immediate results, but you like the step by step, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm wondering, does that ever get frustrating for both of you two, though? Because, for me, just a little bit of a insight into my personal life. I'm the exact same way, like you, Lizzie, more so. I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit of both of you, but in my partnership, we are very, not different. We are very much similar in a lot of ways, but we definitely approach goals in a different way. My mind is always set 5 to 10 years in the future. And it can be very difficult for me to focus on what is right in front of me, even though I've learned how to do it now. It's my natural, genetic makeup is for the future, so to speak. So I'm wondering, for both of you, maybe with Lizzie, does that ever get frustrating? Because I know for me, sometimes it can. It's not like a game changer, or like, it's not, it doesn't make me mad. It's just more so like, it's a different way of understanding, how to reach goals. And so I know I get frustrated sometimes, and I'm wondering for you, does it ever get frustrating if Matt doesn't see the long-term picture at times. And again, I apologize for asking these questions. This is where my brain goes.
It's really, it's good questions, interesting questions. I would say that it doesn't frustrate me. I think that by us having that different outlook, his outlook allows me to look at those day-to-day accomplishments we've done and like be grateful for those milestones. Because like if someone who is just thinking, okay, 1 year out, this many goals, if you're just thinking of those things, sometimes you don't look at your current reality and be like, wow, we've come such a long way from last year. You can be always looking in the future. And so I think that by me having the outlook I do and Matt having the outlook he does, it allows us both to like celebrate the wins that are sure maybe like smaller or day to day, or those milestones that we hit that maybe we would otherwise look past, celebrate those, and then look, okay, what's next? And if you have like that what's next, chances are you're going to be able to accomplish it if you know what you're striving towards. So I think that by him having that day to day outlook on the business, it allows us to hit those milestones and celebrate them rather than just like being on to the next so quickly.
And Matt, what do you say to that?
I love it because I am very like, okay, day to day, we pitch our booking agent a lot of like tours that, we'd love to open for different people or, get on different shows and stuff. And I kind of pitch, like we opened for this kid named Gaten Matarazzo from the show Stranger Things. We did a show with him last year. Supposed to do some more with him. And we've done shows with, acts that play rooms with like 500 people. But then Lizzie will like pitch our agent these bigger shots where it's like a room of 5,000 people. And this artist is looking for, maybe this artist is looking for an opener. So I feel like it's great because as I'm pitching these ideas that are just going to keep helping us take steps, if one of these things that Lizzie's pitching hit, then that's like 20 things that I, try to get us all in one. We just took that step in one big step,
So you need both.
Both for sure. And obviously you're not going to hit a home run every time. So you got to, take the steps as well, the smaller steps too.
Right. So Lizzie, you're pretty much comfortable with going for those Hail Marys, huh? You just go for those home runs.
Yeah, they've gotten us this far, so.
Yeah, is there an example of when it worked for you, Lizzie, in terms of, because I totally understand that. I totally understand of looking at what your goal is. And again, I think this is just part of growing up, but at some point you become more aware of your capabilities, but you can't get rid of that natural desire that you have to go for that home run. And, like you were saying, Matt, sometimes you can hit the home run, but not always. And so that's why it's important to have both. You get some goals done every day, and then every now and then you'll hit that home run. I'm wondering, is there an example, Lizzie, where you really wanted to do something major? And, obviously the average person would look at you and say, hey, don't be crazy. You can't do that just yet. But it worked. And I'm wondering, is there an example of that happened either recently or in the past?
Yeah, there have been. Yeah. So like Matt was saying, not all of them are home runs. Probably 1 out of every 100 of those big emails get a reply. But back in like the end of 2019 middle of 2019, we reached out to this guy named Phil Gurini from Radio Disney. And I found his email, and we are big Disney fans. So I was just like, let's send him an email. Why wouldn't we? And he actually replied and asked us to send him some of his music. And he's like what's like his title?
He was like vice president of Radio Disney at the time.
Yeah.
Which is like a dream for us to like work with the Disney company and like a music capacity.
So yeah, we sent him an email, and he like said that he really liked our music and he wanted to hear more. So we sent him the links, and he was like, I'd love to meet with you guys. And we're like, oh my gosh, like this was such a shot in the dark. At this point, we had only put out like 4 or 5 songs, and it was like a crazy level of expertise that wanted to kind of hang out with us. So it ended up being perfect timing that he was going to be in Chicago like 2 weeks later after we sent that email. And we ended up having a meeting with him, and the advice we got out of that meeting was like unparalleled. Like, we got so much great advice, and we still have that contact, still email him, and hopefully after quarantine, we'll be able to kind of work with him again. And so it was one of those like Hail Marys, like, who is this guy to reply to us, I think at the time we had like 10,000 followers only, and only put out a couple songs, but he liked the songs, and
then happened to be in Chicago the next week for some
perfect timing,
which was amazing, because he's from LA, we're from Chicago. He's not here every day. And Lizzie's done that on a few different things. Like, the first time we were on like a Chicago radio show was like this just random email that she sent out. Like, I would have never thought to do that. I would have never thought that, that email would have been responded to. And then we head to downtown Chicago to this studio for this radio station, which here is called B96. It's like one of the top 3 stations in the city. And we did like a live stream on there, playing a couple songs. So just cool stuff like that,
That's pretty cool, guys. I love that you go for those Hail Marys, because you never know. And I know that sounds cliche to say, but I love when that happens, when you just kind of throw something at the wall and then it hits and you're like, whoa, I had no idea that would happen. I'm wondering, shout out to Phil, because I've heard his name before. He's a very influential guy. And I'm happy that he took time out of his day to sit down with a group like you guys to give you advice. I'm wondering, what were some of the things that stood out from what he said? I'm not sure if we're allowed to know what he told you guys, but that is something that's interesting. It doesn't happen every day, man. It doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, he really did. Like, I wish I would have brought like a notebook and a pen while he was talking. There were so many things. One was just to take every opportunity that we get, as far as shows go, because you never know who's going to be sitting in the crowd, or who's going to, come away from that a huge fan of yours. And sometimes even those smaller shows where you don't think very many people are going to show up, and it might not be worth the traveling, or, whatever it is, there might be somebody in the room who changes your career,
He also said that no one is going to work harder for you than you, which we, obviously, I feel like everyone who works really hard for a business or a startup can relate to that. But just knowing that, like, if you're not going to put in the work and you're not going to see value in your end result, like, why should someone else? So it was a lot of like those takeaways that, like, you might have thought to yourself before, but like hearing someone on, his level with all of the wisdom of the years of experience he's had, just sharing those kinds of things, it was very validating. And yeah, we took a lot away from it.
Yeah, I'm happy, because it's meetings like that can change your life, especially if you take the advice given to you and you actually put it into practice. I know that it can change the direction of your career dramatically. And I mean, good for you guys that you have eyes on you. You guys have done a phenomenal job just on your own already to, build up your music and, have your career, your relationships good. You guys work really well together. One thing that I'm genuinely curious about, now understanding that someone like Phil is interested in what you guys are doing, does it ever make you feel nervous that you have all these eyes on you, especially, as quarantine is coming to an end? I mean, here's fingers crossed, right? At the time of recording this, we're still kind of in it, but who knows? Fingers crossed. Yeah, that's the hope. But I'm wondering, because this happens to me all the time. And again, as I get older, I master it more, but it's part of my genetic makeup. The more eyes that you have on you, the more nervous you naturally get, at least for me. And someone like a duo like you guys who are, in a relationship and it's working really well, does it ever worry you or bother you that people would get to a point where they might become really involved in your relationship? You know what I mean? Like, and this is me just sort of speculating, but I understand that, fans and people who love what you do, they want to feel connected to you. And as a public figure, as a podcaster or as a musician, whatever, it's kind of your job to be able to give what you need to the people that support you. I'm just wondering if that has ever crossed your mind, or if you ever worry about that, or if that's even happened already, where some of your diehard fans, just really try to either pick at what you do privately or, I don't know, like just pay attention to your relationship. You know what I mean? Like, does that ever bother you guys or do you ever even think about it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say not really. Our life is kind of like a TV show almost now with like TikTok and Instagram and all these social media apps, So with the career that we're having and the goals that we have, we're kind of an open book as far as that stuff goes. Obviously, we still have, privacy and all that stuff. But I would say when I start to be honest, the most pressure we feel would probably be in the songwriting area, because it's like if we have songs and Lizzie sent a few of our songs to Phil, and we've worked with a few other awesome people, like Tom from Plain White Tees that you talked about earlier. When they start to like the songs, then it's like, okay, time to write the next couple songs and like want to make sure that these are as good, if not better, as what we just put out, and keep these people involved and loving what we're doing. And so that's probably where we feel the most pressure, is just to put out songs that we not only love, because that's why we do it, because we love to make the music, but songs that are going to keep connecting with people and keep moving us forward.
Yeah. And on that topic, actually, Lizzie, since you are somebody who loves to go for those home runs, this is something that I've experienced before. And I'm wondering if you have actually experienced this. Since you both work together in the songwriting, I imagine that as you become more successful, like Matt was saying, there is sort of this pressure with the music to always deliver, and I feel like it's part of the artist's journey to understand yourself, what your message is and how you create. And, for most of us creators, sometimes things work really well, but I would argue a lot of the times, they work, but they're not like home runs, like we were talking about earlier. So for you, Lizzie, when it comes to the songwriting part of, this duo that you guys have, does it ever bother you or worry you, or do you ever even like dwell on it, on trying to create like a hit? You know what I mean? Because I find that tends to be an area where a lot of young artists end up getting stuck. And I'm not saying you guys are stuck there. I'm just saying it is part of the journey for many, many artists where they're trying to go for that. And as they should be. Every musician is trying to go for their big success and the song that's going to make it. But once you make a good song, there's this pressure that comes out of nowhere to make it again. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering, since you are one that has that big picture, I imagine it probably hits you the hardest, if it hits you at all. So I'm curious if you ever think about that. Does it bother you? Do you ever dwell on it? I don't know.
I mean, I think that, like what Matt was saying, it's hard to, like, sometimes you can second guess yourself when you're writing a song. Like, you might not want to show an idea because it's like not as good or things like that. But I think what we've kind of learned, and especially through like quarantine and stuff, where you really don't have we haven't been going into the studio or doing things like that a ton. So it's been more like self-reflective. Like, we've gotten better about just like writing random little parts to songs and showing each other and being more open with that. And I think that like the past year has kind of been that break that we weren't used to in the past, where it was like very much, we were putting out like a song a month for a while, and just trying to put out new singles and new content all the time. And when, the pandemic hit, like we kind of stopped and reflected more, took a couple months off of writing altogether, just because like it was hard to know like what to write about or, what to do. And since then, like, I think we've gotten better about just like sitting down, writing even like a verse and a chorus, and showing each other, and not being so concerned that it's like a hit, but just like it being good and an idea. And obviously any idea that someone has is like, could be a hit, and maybe you're putting your own walls up of what it should be, or it doesn't sound like this artist, so it couldn't be on the radio. And like, once you're able to kind of let those things go, I think that's when you actually start writing hits, is when you stop comparing it to other artists, which I think we were a little bit caught up in doing before we had time to just like stop and reflect and write.
Yeah. And you're saying how all this happened during quarantine, or did it start before everything went down?
I think that like we were putting out so much music and like trying to write and trying to go into the studio like weekly before the pandemic. And so we never just had a big chunk of time to just like reflect on what we wanted the next batch of songs to be like, or what artists like we were taking inspiration from, because it was going very fast paced. I don't know, Matt, like that's how you kind of felt too. Or...
Yeah, it was kind of nice to like be able to step back and look at what we made over the past couple of years and decide like what we really loved and what we want to, eventually be our kind of stamp on, on the world, and what we have that people can listen to forever. Because at the end of the day, it's like, this is the art we get to make. The label that we're on is called The Humans Were Here. And that's kind of all about just like being here, creating something and leaving it for the rest of the world to find. And Tom, the guy that owns our label, told us once, and I love this quote, but somebody had told him, "You're known more for your hits than your misses," which totally makes sense in regards to not only music, but also like social media and, even podcasting. I'm sure your most popular episode, more people know about that one than your least popular episode, and they know you for it. Kind of the same with music. With him, they've had some huge songs and they're known for those. And the songs that not a lot of people liked, not a lot of people heard,
Right,
because they
right.
didn't. It's kind of like on TikTok, when we have a viral TikTok, it's like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are seeing it. And then if they follow us, that's why they followed us. And then if we put out a TikTok that nobody likes, nobody really sees it,
So it's like, just put it out. And I think that when you get so caught up in like, who's going to like it, is there a place for this on radio or on, to be viral? Like, there's so much pressure there that then like your creative process is just, it's nothing. And then you're just trying to fit a mold. And I don't think that anything like great comes from trying to fit into something,
I agree. And you definitely hit it on the mark. Both of you guys did. And the one thing that took me forever to learn, to sort of add on to what you were saying, nobody actually cares when it doesn't hit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I feel like as a human, especially as an artist, we both, all of us here in this conversation, we can all relate. There is, like we've been talking about, there is this pressure to sort of, succeed and make good stuff that we're proud of. But at the end of the day, what I've come to learn in my short time on this earth is that when you miss, literally nobody cares. There might be one person out there who's an asshole who will come after you and be like, "See, you failed." But like, it's a hard lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And once you learn it, it's silly and it's hilarious when you really think about how like nobody cares. I mean, right now, do you care about some of the people that you know who have tried things and it didn't work out? You might have thought about it for like a second when, you saw it, but then you forgot about it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's that interesting concept because it's obviously easier said than done. Like, when you're in it and you're trying to create stuff that you're proud of, it's so easy to get caught up in it. And it is a discipline to learn to take a step back, remind yourself that nobody's going to care if you fail, and then just really understand what it is that you're trying to make. And it seems like you two are already there, if not like trying to get there. But it seems like during this quarantine, it's helped you guys get comfortable with that idea, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. I mean, I definitely think that that's right. And like you said, when you're in it and everything's going on, you're kind of just like, go, go, go. And you want to keep doing it. But having this opportunity to take a step back and just be like, okay, what are we doing? It's been cool. The pandemic has sucked for a lot of reasons, but it's also given everybody a chance to kind of recreate themselves and to put energy and time into what they really think is important, so we got to kind of look on the bright side every now and then with this stupid pandemic, but hopefully it'll be over soon.
That's the hope. And I think a lot of musicians are really anxious for it to end. And one of the things I am curious for you two, like we were talking about the quarantine and how it encouraged you two to really understand yourselves musically and take a step back and all of that. Relationship wise, how has the quarantine been for you two? Just because I know that, again, me speaking from my experience with my partner who I live with, we've been best friends for a long time. But even during this quarantine, there's been some moments where I myself was like, damn, like being in this one confined space for an entire year with one other individual who you adore can sometimes be a little annoying, you know? So I'm wondering for you too, and I imagine this is a fucking cliche question, but I'm wondering, in terms of quarantine and your relationship musically and also romantically, has it helped to strengthen your standing with each other? Or is it just pretty much the same as it was when it first started?
No, I think, yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's very relevant because I think that they've said divorce rates are way up. And so are like the amount of people who are pregnant. So it's like the best of both worlds. But I think that it has definitely strengthened us. And I think that through working together anyway, like we still had a very strong connection before the pandemic, but I think we've been able to more just focus on the future and like what we want kind of after this and work through some like, you know, anxiety that like it came up obviously during this crazy time and like get to know each other more on that like level without all of the traveling, without all of the commitments and more just kind of focus on who we are. Like, are we okay in the moment? Like, the way we are emotionally in our relationship. And I think that we've definitely grown for the better from it, which I'm really thankful for. And it's really interesting because we made the music video for our new music video for our song Loving You Hurts. We made it before the pandemic, but the whole concept of the video is basically us just like arguing and bickering in like this apartment. So it definitely aged well. Like the music video, a lot of people thought it was made during the pandemic, but it wasn't. It was made before. And it speaks to what a lot of people are probably feeling of just those frustrations and which we've definitely experienced. Like I feel like everyone has experienced senses of frustration when quarantining with someone, whether that be your family members or your friends or your significant other. But overall, thankfully, like I think we've grown stronger from it for sure.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that because I do feel like there have been a lot of relationship problems in general. I mean, as people would understand. And you know what's interesting? I think you might have said this earlier, but I read somewhere where apparently I think pregnancies are down, actually, oddly enough.
Oh, is it really?
Really?
I got to check where I read it from now that I remember. I just vaguely remember reading, it might have been from the New Yorker or something. I don't know. But you would think that it would be up, right? It makes sense.
Right.
But don't quote me on that because I'm curious. I got to double check. But I'm like 80% positive that pregnancies are surprisingly down.
Wow.
And that's
I know divorces are up. So
yeah, so breakups are up, but pregnancies are down. Maybe it's because people are being more careful or whatever. But in general, pregnancies are just down. Even if the quarantine didn't happen, they've been going down for a long time. I don't know. That's a topic for another time. But anyways, I do appreciate you guys being open. This has been a really, really fun conversation to sort of start tying things, kind of getting to the end of the conversation. I'm wondering for your music and where you see you guys going in the future. I know we've already mentioned it a couple times in this interview, but I'm wondering what are some of the goals that you have? What are some of the plans that you have creatively? Maybe not even creatively, maybe just in general, but what are some of the things that you're trying to achieve in the immediate future, maybe in the long-term future? Where do you see your career going? Give me a little bit of a rundown when it comes to that.
Sure. Well, we can't wait till we can go back on tour again. That's kind of like as you probably know, like one of the most fun things about being a musician is getting to go play live and some of the awesome venues across the country and traveling and meeting people and hearing how your music affects them and all that great stuff. So we can't wait till that comes back. But in the meantime, we're going to be starting to work on a full-length album, which will be our first full-length. We've done an EP and then a string of different singles since then. So we're getting ready to write and record just a full-length album. And there's not really a ton of pressure on when to have it done, because we don't know when everything's going to open back up and, when it's going to be an opportune time to put out, singles and music videos again and songs and then be able to tour on that album. So we're just kind of taking it slow and we're going to work towards the goal, to have it out by the end of the year. And then post that, after that, we want to keep creating, hopefully there's 5, 6, 7, 8 more albums in the next couple of years and lots of touring and lots of being together.
Love it. And when it comes to you're currently in Chicago, and I'm not too privy on what's going on there musically. I know that I know Tom's there, and I know that I talked to Damar, his drummer there, and I know Chicago has a very rich music history. Are you guys planning on staying in Chicago long term, or do you guys have any plans to moving out west, or maybe even to New York or another city in the distant future?
Well, we're in Chicago right now. We love Nashville. We love Florida. We love LA. So we've always kind of thought about, taking like a 6 month, staying in LA or staying in Nashville or staying in Florida, especially when it's freezing here,
Yeah.
But for right now, the studio that we record in this here, our record label is headquartered here. So it's going to be a good time to be here for the next, 6-9 months working on this album.
Hopefully when things open up, like Matt said, we're able to, kind of get to warmer climates. We have recorded in LA too with the Humans Were Here team. So yeah, hopefully some warmer climates, at least by next winter.
I love it, guys. Well, hey, I want to say thank you so much for, again, taking time out of your day to come to the show, talk to me about your relationship and music, because it isn't always easy to be open. That's one thing I always have to tell everybody. It's easier said than done, but when you have to come on a podcast or do an interview and really just talk about yourself, it can be intimidating. So I always extend my gratitude to those that come on the show and are just open to talk about, their feelings, what they're thinking about, who they are, because at the end of the day, that's what's important. I think that's what helps musicians, and not just musicians. It just helps all of us feel more connected, and it inspires us to just be our better versions of ourselves. And I think with this interview, who knows, there might be another duo out there that might want to do music, but they're not so sure. And so I think your story might help them. So I do appreciate your time, Matt and Lizzie. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are doing some cool stuff, and I cannot wait to see where your career goes.
Thank you. And thank you so much for all of those questions. Like, you have asked some awesome things. And
yeah, and congratulations on all the success with the pod. We see it's growing, and, you're obviously very good at what you do, and that's why we wanted to come on here. So congrats, on all that stuff, and thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And thank you for reaching out, because, sometimes it can be difficult to find really cool people. Let me rephrase that. It's not hard to find really cool people to be on the show. It can be a little, a lot time consuming. And so you guys kind of did my job for me. So I appreciate you guys reaching out. And it was that Hail Mary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of those.
Of course.